If you had told me that Curry Barker, a YouTube skit pro, somebody who came off of a very long history of just TikToks and YouTube shorts of comedy, had directed one of the best horror movies of all time, the highest grossing horror movie of 2026, and a film that I instantly fell in love with and put in my top 10 movies of the year, top 5 movies of the year, really, well, I told you were crazy. When the promo for Obsession first started, I didn't know anything about Curry Barker. I didn't know anything about the cast. We just really got that first trailer, which was just a bear sitting in his car making the phone call to what we learned as the customer service rep, played by Curry Barker himself. And that's about all we got. And so nobody really knew anything about Obsession. I think that's very good marketing, by the way, to have a movie where it just leaves a lot to be desired, leaves you guessing. So first of all, great marketing by Curry Barker there. But overall, we didn't know much about Obsession coming into it. And honestly, I think that's kind of why I didn't really have expectations. And so they couldn't get really lowered or exceeded, really, because I didn't have much expectation about it up until like a couple weeks before the movie. The hype for Obsession really came for me the first, preview season of it, when the review started to roll in and things started to look really, really good for them. I wasn't fully convinced I was going to love it still, there is a lot of movies that come out and they go through these preview rounds and everybody says, "Oh my, one of the best movies of the year, one of the best movies I've ever seen," and you think, well, I'm just not sure that that's true, right? And then you see the movie and you're like, actually, it's not true. But with Obsession, even with those really, really good reviews, and even with my attitude of, like, I'm going in not thinking this is going to be the best movie ever, I'm going in still tempering my expectations, it blew me out of the water, still. It completely blew me out of the water, it completely blew my expectations out of the water, and it just is a fantastic movie, so let's freaking talk about it, man. The biggest positive, and I believe for even people who didn't love the movie, this is a positive, is Indy Navarrete as Nikki Freeman. One of the best performances in horror that I've ever seen. Definitely the best one in horror this year so far, not even close. There's a lot to say about her, but the way that she can flip a switch from Wish Nikki and Real Nikki, unbelievable. I think is some of the best acting I've seen on a horror movie. Just the way that she changes back and forth between this obsessed person with Bear and this real person who is clearly trapped in being in suffering, right? We hear on the customer service call, like when he's talking to the customer service rep, and he says, "Do you want to talk to Nikki?" and she's just screaming, like clearly something is going on with the real Nikki, right? And that's just kind of like Indy Navarrete is doing a fantastic job of switching back and forth between those two people, between those two characters, right? She's doing an awesome job, basically pulling double duty, because there is a certain level to her character in the very beginning where she's just this normal person who we are intended to like, and we do like, and we think is just an overall good person, and then what she turns into, this crazed, obsessed woman who just will do nothing, will stop at nothing for Bear, right? And that is something that she just does really well. That is not an easy thing to portray, especially it's not an easy thing to do where in the scenes where she does instantly snap back to real Nikki and kind of freaks out for a second. The way that she does that so effortlessly is really, really good. And so she is the biggest positive of this movie. I think she should be Oscar nominated. I think she should win the Oscar. If I really had a vote, I think I would have her as my winner. That says a lot. I mean, we're early in the year, so not a lot of performances have even hit the screen yet, but I think Indy Navarrete is the best performance I've seen in a movie this year, and I don't think that's exaggeration at all. Another big positive for this movie is Curry Barker's direction, and more specifically the lighting that he uses with his tech team. The way that they lit the movie, I think, is awesome. There were moments where specifically where Nikki is standing on her porch when she first turns into Wish Nikki, and it's just a silhouette. That is some of the best lighting I've seen in a movie, especially in a horror movie. The way that she's lit when she comes to his door the night after we see Wish Nikki for the first time, when she just tells him she was on drugs and she didn't really mean anything that happened, but she tells him that she actually likes him. Obviously that is Wish Nikki talking, but like when the way that she's lit in that scene is so creepy, even though it's a completely normal scene. Nothing really crazy happens in that scene, but it is so creepy, and so it builds the tension. the way she's lit after she walks backwards, the way that the lighting works with the scene where she's in the corner watching him sleep. All of it really is just masterful from Curry Barker. So his direction, the lighting of this movie, huge positive. Another positive for me is the way that the movie is scary and produces anxiety without a ton of jump scares. That's just a personal thing for me. I like horror movies with jump scares, and I actually like, the ways that a lot of movies utilize jump scares, and there are a couple in this one. But this one more builds the tension through lighting, through acting, through emotion. It builds the anxiety in a way where you've seen so much of what Witch Nikki is that you just know something is coming, but you have no clue what she's going to do next. And that's kind of where the anxiety and the scares come from in this movie. Not necessarily from big flashy jump scares, but more from the fact that you have no clue what's going to happen, and you know kind of in your mind that it's going to be something bad and something huge and something weird, right? That's going to freak you out, but you don't know what it is. You couldn't possibly see it coming. Just the way that she screams at some point, just randomly. One of the things that really got to me, anxiety-wise, and this might just be a personal thing, is when Bear says originally that he's going to go to Ian's house for a boys' night. She shuts the water of the shower off so hard, and that it's just little stuff like that isn't necessarily a jump scare, but it's just stuff that really builds the tension and anxiety well through using emotion. When she's wailing in the corner, when she's wailing in the corner, after she watches him sleep, and she says, I feel like you don't love me. I feel like it's not mutual. That's not a jump scare, but that is terrifying stuff. To imagine that happening to you, and also just to see it, it is terrifying stuff. So, dude, great job there, and that's what I really love about this movie, is that it's a horror movie that doesn't rely on just jump scares, but it just builds anxiety and tension to a T, right? I don't have too many negatives about this movie. I've tried to rack my brain for them for this video, but I think the biggest thing that I don't love is Ian's character, and I do not think that is because he's not a good character. I think it's because he is played and written exactly the way that I would have wanted, that people would have wanted, or Curry would have wanted, for people to not like him, right? He's written in a way where it's portrayed in a way where you're not supposed to really love him, and that's my only negative. I think one of, this is a small thing, but I think another negative of the movie is the scene with Ian and Bear. You can see Nikki staring at him the whole time, and that's good, but I think it needs to focus more on just Ian and Bear in their conversation, and then kind of have a cut to Nikki, who's been staring at him this whole time. When you can see it, it's a little bit different, but if it just cuts to Nikki having implied that she's been staring at him the whole time, I think that would have been a little bit better. But the negatives are really few and far between. I think Michael Johnson was good, and Cooper Tomlinson was good, kind of the other two leads in the movie. Obviously Michael Johnson is very good as Bear. Cooper Tomlinson, I don't know much about him. I think he was okay. I don't think there's anything special about his performance. Honestly, I think he's got the worst performance out of the core four in this movie, personally. But I think Cooper Tomlinson was funny. I think he's great. But again, the negatives really do not come very... they come very few and far between. It's hard to look at it and nitpick this movie very much. I also just don't love the way Ian's story plays out. I think the him wishing for $1 billion thing is fine, but I think him not listening to Bear, his best friend, especially after seeing the way Nikki has been acting and just doing that, I think that's a little... I'm not sure if it's out of character, but I didn't love that, and I also didn't love how abrupt his ending is. I didn't love the way that his story ends, right? The fact that he finally believes Bear, even though he probably does have an abrupt ending because he didn't believe him in the first place, so that's kind of getting what you deserve. But in another sense, the way that his character ends his story, just getting shot without even really getting a really true final scene, or really getting to see what Bear had been going through. Because if he walks in that door, maybe this is intentional by Curry Barker, but if he walks in that door, he would see right in that moment everything that Bear's gone through, and Nikki has gone through, right? And in that moment, he would probably try and do something to stop it, but obviously it's kind of too late at that point. But overall, this movie is just about as close to perfect as you can get as a horror film. I loved every second of it. I've seen it twice. Might even see it a third time. It's just fantastic. So if you have not seen Obsession, it is definitely still in theaters. So if it's at your local theater, please go see Obsession. If you were a horror fan, if you were a movie fan, you need to see this movie. There's so much to love about it. that is all I have for today. So if you did like this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and do whatever you can to help grow the channel. We will see you guys next time.